And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Yeah.
We could use more Michael McDonald in our life.
Yeah, this is an oddly good way to start the show. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This was a guy, there's a lot of people like this, who I just thought was like kind of a joke when I was younger. And I'm like, oh no, people lost their mind for this person.
Well, this is a good tune.
No, he's an A-plus songwriter. He's got one of the craziest but good voices of all time. And, like, people were throwing themselves at him. I'm sure endlessly. But when I was young, I was like, yeah, he's got long hair. He looks like an idiot. I'm like, no, he was awesome. But you got to mature a little bit before you realize cool comes in a lot of looks.
Yeah. I mean, somehow that Saturday Night Live weirdo dates every starlet in town.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not a quintessential good-looking guy.
What's his name?
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson. Thank you. I like Pete.
You know what's funny? On this note, one of the characters that we ran into in Disneyland was Gaston, and I gotta hand it to the good folks at casting at Disney, because this guy was, I mean, like,
they nailed it.
Like, was this his career goal? Like when he looked in the mirror as like a 16-year-old,
I've
he's
only
like,
got
you know
one
what?
route.
It's Gaston at Disneyland
Or nothing.
This is it. He was like good-looking guy, like obviously in good shape, but he was 6'4" and had the like chiseled face.
Absolutely.
And it was like, yeah, this guy had one route. Gaston at Disneyland. That was it. That was it.
I'm not sure that brings the attention to you the way being Michael McDonald does, but yeah. I'm not sure you go to parties.
No, we just talked about...
And you tell them you're, as they say in Disney lore, friends with Gaston. And
no, we were talking about traditional / non-traditional good looks. And Gaston, I would say, is like a traditionally good-looking character.
The archetype of good-looking
right.
cartoon characters.
Like, I'm sure this guy didn't have much trouble getting numbers at a party. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Where Michael McDonald looks more like the dog from the Peter Pan cartoon.
Right.
And
somehow that guy has no problem getting a date.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I do. 100%.
I mean, I'd call myself traditionally good looking. Never could get a date.
No.
Ever. My wife said no to me the first time I asked her out. True story.
That's how it's meant to be. Well, there's a discrepancy between the two of you.
No, don't do that. She's lucky to have me.
I'm going to remind her constantly.
Don't do that.
You still sure about Jake? The
Don't
ink's
do
dry?
that. Remember my theme song this year is "We Belong Together."
Oh,
Stop
that's
it.
right. Okay, we've graduated.
Right. I can't believe it. You know what's just hilarious is that bit lasted the whole year and then culminated with it being played at the Super Bowl halftime.
We couldn't have drawn it up
How
better.
does that happen?
We couldn't have drawn it up any better.
No. And this year I get Mariah and "We Belong Together."
Maybe Mariah will do this. She's done the Super Bowl already?
Wait. Here, listen to it kick in. Yeah. That's it.
I didn't mean it when I said I didn't love you. That's what your wife said to you the first time you asked her out.
Don't ruin this for me. Stop it. Stop it. Don't ruin Mariah for me. You can ruin Usher for me. That's fine. Don't ruin Mariah for me. Thank you, Sarah. It's going to be a good day. I wasn't sure, but now I know. It's going to be a good day. You know what I like about today, Ben? In all honesty, to transition to a somewhat productive conversation. In my career, that has lasted, as we documented, 20 years now, college basketball has rarely, and I mean, like, I'd say a quarter of the time been relevant.
Ooh. I almost wonder,
I
wonder if you're being ambitious with a quarter of the time.
So, I mean, Utah was interesting coming out of the Majerus era for a variety of reasons, but you forget that there was a Sweet 16 run in there with Giacoletti and Bogut. And then, then under Larry Kryskowiak, it was interesting for a hot second when they had a Sweet 16 run with another NBA center. BYU was really relevant in the Jimmer years. Mm-hmm. And I say years because it was more than one. We get caught up in his last year, but there were 2 really good years with Jimmer. Utah State has been pretty consistently good, even jumping into bigger leagues, which I think is interesting, although Utah State has an uphill battle to dominate the conversation, of course. Even though, man, I love the Spectrum. It was fun to see some national guys up at the Spectrum yesterday. I'm trying to think of when college basketball during my career has been really relevant, and it's really cool this morning to jump in here, and we're going to talk. I mean, college basketball is the big story right now. We have multiple teams that are going to be in the tournament, almost assuredly.
2 for sure. And I was looking at Lunardi's bracket yesterday on ESPN. He still says Utah is on the right side of the bracket. He says it's on the right side of the cut line still.
Weber could get in?
Yeah. And has the best player in state. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's great to have college basketball coming back. I hope, though history tells us it is a blip, I hope it's not.
But here's why my argument, because I was thinking about just that. Good thought, Ben, because I was thinking about just that. We're in Big 12 country now. Mm-hmm. You know what's really relevant in the Big 12? College basketball. And if the local programs can step up to the competition level, and hey, I'll be the first to admit that I was skeptical about that. But if the college programs can step up and meet the challenge, man, we're in for college basketball being really relevant around here, and hopefully to stay. And good for BYU for kicking in the door. I didn't think they'd beat Baylor in their first year. I thought it might take 10 years to beat Baylor. Home, road, whatever. Baylor is a upper echelon program and has been for a long time, and they're not even the best program in the league. And BYU's beaten Baylor in their first year. Hats off to that program for meeting the challenge. And in an ever-shifting environment where getting transfers has never been easy for BYU for a variety of reasons, and they've got a transfer who's ballin' in Khalifa. It's there's a lot of good going down in Provo in the basketball department, and got to give them credit. I 100% admit I was skeptical about it, and what a year.
Khalifa, obviously the big story yesterday with his best outing of the season. I don't think that's all that difficult to say. I mean, I know he's had some bigger games as far as scoring goes. He scored 21 against Texas Tech in another ranked game, but a loss. He scored 17 points against Central Florida, not the quality of team. But 14 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, shot the heck out of the ball, 4 of 6 from 3, and got BYU some easy baskets. We saw a lot of the Domantas Sabonis, Hans Olsen, if you missed it, had quite a few clips, kind of the dribble handoffs that were just freeing BYU cutters to get easy baskets at the lane, where Baylor just had no idea who to guard. It was kind of bizarre how bad Baylor was in that situation. But that's what a coach does. Oh, you can't guard this action? We're going to run it 7 times in a row. That's what LeBron James does late in games over and over. He is recognized throughout the game. You don't know how to defend this, so we're going to run it 7 times in a row, and I'll pick you apart. And that's what BYU did late against Baylor. And then the other thing that BYU did very well is they won the math equation, which is if you're going to let us hit 14 threes, what did Baylor end up with, 5?
5 for 20.
Okay, you're going to lose that game. I don't care if you shoot 15 more free throws or 20 more free throws like they did last night. If you're going to get outshot from the three-point line by 9 makes, you're going to lose. And that's a smart design from Mark Pope because, to be honest with you, look at the mock drafts. BYU might have a borderline first-round pick. I kind of doubt it. Baylor has 2 lottery picks. Well, BYU's not going to compete with them size to size or athleticism to athleticism.
No.
And there's ways to do it then. There's ways to get around it. You can play some zone on the defensive end, and you can shoot the heck out of the ball, and BYU shoots the heck out of the ball.
Is that sustainable? That's the hard part about relying on the three. Can you dial up 14 every night? Can you take 14 threes on the road? Not really. So that's the hard part.
You're counting cards, right?
Yeah.
And you're just betting that, like, the odds are we're going to keep turning up cards because I'm counting it and I can beat the house enough times. But the problem is you get it wrong when you think you're going to pull a 10 and there's a 3 behind there, and 3's a bad number to use, a 4 in the deck, and you lose, and that's how you lose in, the round of 32.
It's a gimmick for sure. It's definitely a gimmick. But here's maybe what I need to live with, right? And maybe Utah will fall under this category when they get into the Big 12 as well, is that, you know what? Some schools in leagues are Washington State where you need the gimmick. And you're probably not going to win the league a ton, but you're probably going to punch above your weight more often than not. And so maybe that is honestly what BYU is in this league, is they're going to be the 3-point shooting team that's going to play a little bit differently than everybody else and is going to win games that they probably have no business winning.
Jake, there's this movie with Brad Pitt called Moneyball that you should watch.
Oh,
and it's exactly about this exact situation.
Take me now.
A team with
Had
less talent
Had enough.
finds a way to compete with the big spenders of the world. But truthfully, that is a little bit what BYU is dealing with and what Utah is going to deal with going to the Big 12. Utah is never going to have more talent than Kansas. No. Ever. They're never going to recruit better than Kansas does. They're probably not going to have most years better talent than West Virginia. There's just a lot of teams in the Big 12. I'd venture to say most years are going to have more quote-unquote talent than Utah and BYU. So you've got to figure out the gimmick, essentially. And gimmick has a negative connotation. It doesn't need to in this situation. To have an identity to get wins.
Gimmicks win you games. You know who wins a lot of games with a gimmick? UVA. UVA college basketball.
Yes, their whole thing is a gimmick.
Their whole thing is a gimmick.
Boeheim's whole thing was a gimmick.
They won a national championship. Yeah.
Boeheim ran his own when nobody ran his own. Nobody ran his own. Now everybody does, but nobody did. It was a joke.
In a way, old school Rick Majerus Utah was a gimmick he was the team that wanted to play defense.
Yeah.
But, thank you. I mean, I'm using the word gimmick here, but it is.
It's the right word.
If you're a 3-point shooting team, that's exactly what it is. But maybe that's BYU's advantage. Utah, I think, is different, and not to turn a BYU conversation into a Utah conversation. But Utah's key is going to be really what made them successful in the Mountain West /WAC, and what has made the football team successful. And that's, you've got to find diamonds in the rough or get guys into school that may not get into school other places for whatever reason. And it could be grades, could be whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not
speculating.
No. But Utah football has done that really, really well. And I imagine they'll continue to do that. I think that's Utah basketball's key to success. That's how they got Andre Miller and Keith Van Horn and these players that turned out to be really, really good. I don't think, to your point, Utah is going to be landing the top recruit in the country all of a sudden because they're in the Big 12 or out recruiting Kansas or Baylor or really half the league. They're going to have to find, the underrated, he's too thin in high school type guy and have a vision for him, and just like football. So it's going to be different. I don't think BYU can rely on that. I think the Cougars, you go back to Dave Rose, you go back to Steve Cleveland, they've shot the 3 really well for a long time. They can recruit that. And if you add in a savvy player like Khalifa, who's really a playmaker, that's the recipe for success. Jimmer shot him into the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do that every game, and that's where they'll lose some games, like Oklahoma State. They're going to lose some games that they have no business losing. But you know what? BYU's big time punching above their weight right now, for sure. A WCC team, and a WCC team stepping into the Big 12 and competing is a big deal.
Yep. It's a huge deal. It's not all that likely. I thought BYU's season was not going to end in a tournament run. I was a little more optimistic than you were. And I thought, you're going to steal a couple of games at home against teams who are more talented than you are because it's really hard to play at the Marriott Center. It's one of the best atmospheres in college basketball, and I don't say that lightly. It's really one of the best. BYU supports all of their sporting programs really well, and basketball has been one consistently that has, been a very difficult place to play, even when they were in the WCC, even when they were out-talented by teams like Gonzaga. We saw that repeatedly. So I expected them to get some wins this year at the Marriott Center. I certainly did not expect them to have 20 wins on the season and have punched their ticket to the tournament by early February, which was the case.
You know what? The Marriott Center is really an underrated asset. I think when BYU was applying for other conferences all those years, people don't realize how huge that place is.
And let me counter that.
Huge.
People don't realize how small a lot of college buildings are.
Right. This teeny tiny. Even like the Spectrum isn't huge up in Logan, and they pack it, and that's a special environment. The Marriott Center is bigger, or was anyway, than Delta Center, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So that place filled, and their student section is very good, very creative. And it's a special environment. You know, it's funny to see a lot of the media around the Big 12 and their eyes kind of open to the Marriott Center. Like, holy cow, we had no idea. You know, we knew the football stadium was packed, but you go to that Marriott Center and it's nuts. It'd be a huge advantage.
18,000 people. Just under 18,000.
It's huge.
Yeah. What is Cameron Indoor? It's like 9,000?
8 or 9.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's teeny.
Yeah. I mean, that matters.
No, it's one of the biggest arenas in the Western United States, indoor basketball arenas.
Yeah. It's awesome. So good for BYU. Good for Utah State, too, who Sprinkle has just done an unbelievable job putting that team together, recruiting, bringing kids in that he knew. Darius Brown is a baller guard, the type that we've seen make runs in the tournament. You get a senior who's played a lot of basketball, steps up. You know, his numbers by themselves aren't going to wow you, but just the number of situations he's seen, the confidence he has, the nothing-to-lose attitude that those guys have by the time they're a senior, and this is the end of their college basketball career, they just play with a different moxie. They just have a little bit of a different energy. We've seen it a lot, and he's one of those guys.
And I got to give BYU credit. They bet on Pope going into the new league, and he's stepped up big time.
Yep.
So there's a lot of credit to go around down in that building, and first and foremost to the players themselves who just beat Baylor. I mean, great win.
Almost beat Baylor twice. They probably should have beat Baylor in Baylor this year. They were up double digits in the second half, and it got away from them. But they did it this year. I mean, they did it this time. That's all that matters. They're playing great.
Did you hear Scott Drew after the game and how deflated he sounded? It's like, yeah, you did that to that coach.
He's good. He's a good coach.
He is a good coach. Baylor's a great program.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that Baylor's like the third best program in this league? Nah, second.
Yeah, I think it's Kansas and then Baylor.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Baylor, I was talking to a guy who knows Baylor pretty well. Surprisingly small donor base, apparently. It's not a huge school.
No, it's not.
But for as rich of history as they have, especially recently, and the rumor is that Keontae George got a 7-figure NIL deal to go play at Baylor, they don't actually have that much money to go around. They don't have as much as you would think, considering they always have at least one lottery pick on their team. So it's kind of interesting. You can win without it, apparently.
Baylor's in Waco, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm really buying that it's as small as maybe.
Look, it's not Westminster. It's not Westminster.
I know.
But I don't think they have like an $8 million allotment the way I think some schools might.
Yeah, but people who... No, you know what? Oh, okay, I'll leave it there. But yeah, they're doing fine as a basketball program.
Sure.
They've been doing fine for a long time.
And clearly that's probably where their money goes. It's probably not going to the football program.
Not at the moment.
Which is on the decline.
Back to our basketball football school conversation. Baylor basketball school.
Basketball school. Has had some glimpses.
Football moments, basketball school.
Yeah.
Always will be. But you nab RG3 once in a while and you're going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Man, he was good in college.
One of the best I've ever seen.
So good for BYU.
That's great. And Utah State.
And locking down a good seed in the tournament. And listen, that's one thing I learned about BYU and the WCC. Access to the tournament was better than I thought it was going to be going in. Like, if BYU had a decent team, they were going to get in. But where the reputation of the league came in was with the seeding. And even when BYU had a decent team, they were going to Dayton, or they were getting a low seed where they have to play these good teams. And that's tough. You know, it's easier to get to the Sweet 16 when you're rolling through a couple of cupcakes.
Yeah.
But, you know, heaven forbid you get out of the first round with a tough matchup, and then you get the 2 seed in the bracket or whatever in the next round. I mean, and BYU didn't do that when they were in the WCC, but the task is daunting. Whereas give me, the Golden Retrievers in round 1.
Yeah.
And I bring that up knowing that they won in round 1. But give me them.
Yeah.
And follow that up with UTEP. And then let me get a meaty...
right. Then I'll play Florida.
Yeah, right.
Then I'll play these other teams. But yeah, that first round matchup, which is exciting. Oh, you're getting to play one of the historically great college basketball programs in the opening round. Well, that's not going to be that good for you.
Yeah. Well, I remember Spencer Nelson and J.C. Carroll and that Utah State team that was in the Big West. And they were lighting it up. They were top 25 in the country. And who did they get in the first round? What was Damon Stoudemire's brother's name? Salim Stoudemire and Arizona in the first round. Lute Olson.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the great season, boys.
Yeah.
You know what? Eat as much as you can at the buffet because we're going to be flying home in about...
Don't unpack.
Yeah, right. Which is cool for them, and I'm sure Spencer will tell you that making the tournament was really special. Did you know Utah State honestly could have won that game, but Spencer was sick.
Huh.
He was sick, and he played, and he did not play well because he was not feeling well. And JC kept him in it with some shooting early, and then it just unraveled. Anywho.
The tournament's brutal. It's fun, though. I'm excited. I'm excited that we can talk about it.
But BYU should get I'm not a
5?
seed expert, but a 4 or 5 seed where you're going to get a nice matchup in the first round. You're going to get a winnable game in round 2. And then, it's anybody's ball game by the time you get to the 16.
I said Elite 8. I said this is an Elite 8 caliber team. Now, some of that's going to rely on shooting.
If you turn out to be right on that, I'm going to give you a ton of credit because I thought you were insane when you said it.
When you've got, I know Khalifa doesn't have great shooting percentages.
I almost had you committed.
They've got a couple of guys who can get consistent buckets late in games. That's what I like about them.
I called somebody. I did. So I thought, well, Ben's finally lost it. And anyway. If somebody knocks on your door, just tell them, no, I was right about that.
Told you. We'll see. But no, I'm excited. And again, I hope we end up with more than 2.
We'll talk about the other team that had a big win. There's no place like first place, Ben. I wish I could do an Al Lewis Go Aggies because I would throw that in right now. Stay tuned. More Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. Let's go. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson. It's time for the top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall. The other, Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Sarah, where are we starting today?
Number 1, Utah State comes up with a big upset.
Ben, how about them Aggies? Get a win at the Spectrum in Logan over the Aztecs, 68-63. Utah State is now all alone in first place atop the Mountain West Conference at 10-4.
About Sprinkle going full Tom Thibodeau. Plays 7 guys. 4 of his starters play 30 minutes or more. 3 of his starters played 35 minutes.
Got to do what you got to do to win ball games, Ben.
That's how you win games. That's awesome, man. You identify your talent. And you win with them, and that's what he's done. And they had a good shooting night. They didn't have a great shooting night, 49% from the floor.
That's a great shooting night. What are you talking about? You're so jaded by the NBA. In college, that is a great shooting night.
But only 7 of 22 from the three-point line. So it wasn't like they just got red hot, and then on the defensive end, they really limited San Diego State, just 3 of 19 from the three-point line shooting. Again, we talked about Darius Brown he's a baller. He just plays very well, 8 of 13, 5 of 9 from the three-point line, 4 of 4. His best game of the season, 25 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists.
So today, Ben, believe it or not, is Bronco Mendenhall's birthday.
Oh.
Happy birthday to Bronco.
We should have led with that.
I think Danny Sprinkle might be a little bit out of the Bronco mold, meaning he's a really good coach and going to get a disciplined effort out of his team every night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not going to beat themselves. They're going to execute a game plan, and they're going to be a really prepared team, and that's going to be their advantage. And against a bunch of teams, I mean, they've won 22 games so far, Ben.
Yep.
We're still in February. 22 games. And are alone atop Mountain West Conference that is as good as it has been since the late 2000s, the late aughts.
Okay. You're talking about the Jimmer Kawhi era.
That era.
Yep.
It's as good as it's been since then. It's really good. San Diego State is a really good team. Man, San Diego State was in the Durden Finals
Last year.
Yep.
That's
a great win. Good for Utah State. And we talked about BYU's home court advantage. The Spectrum is absolutely a huge home court advantage. That is a great sports environment. I love the Spectrum.
I love Mason Falslev. He has no idea he's not as good as he thinks he is. And so he just plays as well as he thinks he is, which he shouldn't be with his background. And I know he's a little bit older. He served a mission, right?
Yep. And redshirted last year.
But, he just does not have any doubt that he belongs on the court with everybody you put in front of him, which I love those types of guys. I like irrational confidence guys when it's used the right way, and he uses it the right way. He uses it with a little bit of reckless abandon, but not stupidity.
Yeah, not in the Jonathan Tavenari way.
He's not just going to put his head down and try and make
that
it
was
sense.
unfair. I was planning that joke before you said stupidity.
No, it's fine. You can burn it.
I think that there is nothing stupid about Jonathan Tavenari. He just was a little. He was a little liberal with his shot selection. That was the joke.
So
thanks for ruining it. You were saying.
I think Falslev's great. I'm watching him play, and he's going to be really good. Yeah, he's really good. He's just
I get what you're saying.
He's a dump truck. He just gets downhill.
He plays hard.
He plays hard.
He plays hard.
Yep.
Utah State's going to play hard.
Throws his body around.
And
type
then
of guy you hate playing against.
You add in, a player like Darius Brown, who's really, really good. You put him on a team like that, and you know what? They're going to be really good. And they did not return, Ben, a single point from last year's team.
Yep.
Not a single point. And Sprinkle comes in and is going to win the league, or I shouldn't count my chickens, but
probably win the regular season.
Absolutely. And with a league like the Mountain West this year, then who cares what you do in the tournament? In Vegas, that is. And you should be looking at a pretty good seed going in.
Here's how Utah State closes the season. At Fresno, coming up on the 27th, so they've got 6 days off now. Home against Air Force, at San Jose State, home against New Mexico.
6 days off, Ben. Who cares if you Thibodeau them then?
Oh, yeah, that's why you do
play,
it, right?
Guys.
Yeah, I'm surprised he played 7. Play 5.
Yeah.
You guys got
You
tomorrow
guys are
off.
going the whole way. Got 6 days off coming up. Can you imagine how many subs per game? If there were 6 days in between games, how many subs per game over/under would Tom Thibodeau make?
Oh, 1 at the end of the first half.
And that's it.
Yeah, 6 guys. Everyone plays 47 minutes or more.
I don't blame him. All right. Great win for the Aggies. They're awesome that college basketball is such a huge story this year. It's great.
Shout out for Ian Martinez resurfacing and playing well after starting his career at Utah and going to Maryland and coming back.
All right. What's next?
Number 2, the Pac-12 hires a new commissioner.
Should we care?
It doesn't have a huge impact on what we're doing locally anymore. Shout out to Teresa Gould. She is the first female commissioner in P5 history.
I guess congratulations to her, but it doesn't count.
What do you mean it doesn't count?
This isn't a league anymore.
There
It's two
are
teams.
teams that can play
It's
against
not
one another.
a league anymore. They're only pretending it's a league so that they can rake in as much dough as they can before the doors close. And you know what? I hope Teresa gets a nice cut of that dough, because that's all that's going on here. Is we have to pretend that we're a league long enough for the contract to run out, and then they have to figure something else out.
You know what she should do?
They have to.
She should find a way to cause a scandal of some kind. She should get herself embroiled in scandal.
Like
the way all the Pac-12 commissioners have.
I almost wish she would have held out for a different job and the Pac-12 would have just hired some stiff. Because if this really is a historic thing, then it's pretty lame that this is it. Because they hired somebody just to stand there.
Maybe you're underselling that she's the stiff. Maybe she
is.
She's
no,
the dead
but
body.
that's why I'm saying I'm hoping for her sake. You know what I mean? Like if we are going to be, if she's going to walk around for the rest of her life being like, hey, I was the first female commissioner of a P5 league. Oh, yeah?
Which
Big
league?
Ten? Did you replace Kevin Warren? I mean, which? Oh, it was the Pac-12.
The Washington
Pac-12.
State, Oregon State.
Pac-12. Oh, so you must have worked with Ben Anderson at UCLA. Oh, no. UCLA wasn't in the league at the time. Wait, well, surely you worked with somebody at Stanford and Cal, right? Oh, no, they were. No, it was just. Do you know Kirk Schultz? Because I worked with him closely, and I forgot his name, but the other guy at or whoever it was at Oregon State, and that was it. 2 teams. We were a strong league.
She's really. This is funny, and it's not because it's the first female commissioner in P5 history. What's funny is. Technically, in this situation, you don't need a commissioner, right? Because the two athletic directors can just call each other and come to an agreement.
You don't need it. No, she's not doing anything.
You and I don't need somebody between us to help.
I don't even know why they did this.
Yeah.
Because they have to pretend. Yes, they have to pretend. You gave us a period of time that we have to pretend, and we'll pretend every second because we make more money pretending than we do joining another league. So, pretend on 3.
Hey, I'm rooting for her. Go Gould.
No, and then Gloria Navarez at the Mountain West will gobble them up when this period is over, and they'll be up for a TV deal at that point and can go back to the table, and it all works smoothly.
Maybe this is a springboard job then.
And
I'm hoping for her.
Well, Gloria is not letting Teresa exist after that happens. No way. You got to centralize power at that point, Ben.
Grind her into dust.
That's what I'm saying. Next.
Number 3, RSL opens the season against Messi and Inter Miami.
Who on earth at RSL, and shout out to them, bribed the league to get opening night against Messi?
Where, he's not going to rest? He's not going to take the night off?
He's only going to play 30% of the time. And he's almost, well, I guess I should say almost, guaranteed to play. Amazing.
Absolutely.
That's incredible. The eyes of, quite literally, the sports world will be upon RSL.
And also, again, I'm not pretending I'm a huge soccer guy, but I do know the name Luis Suarez, who is starting his Kobe Bryant retirement tour with Miami. He's debuting tonight as well. So some big-time historic names tonight playing for Miami as RSL takes them on 6 p.m. in the season opener.
Now, here is the rub, Ben. You have to play well. If Messi just makes you look stupid and scores 6 goals, then it's not a big boon for the franchise. In fact, it goes the other way on you. So you gotta show up. That's the deal. You gotta play well.
I have really bad news for you. Did you watch Messi at all last year?
Yes, I did.
Scored a goal every 6 minutes.
The odds are that he's going to make you look foolish. But tall task. You got to show up, or else you look foolish.
Hey, you know what? Shout out to David James, who gets to call a Lionel Messi match tonight, though. I bet he never thought that was going to be a part of his career.
And I still say that it just shows that Major League Soccer has a long way to go when the story is the guy playing. Even though he's making your league look foolish, everybody still celebrates. But I get it. He's one of the best ever. I don't know my soccer history, but he's on the Mount Rushmore, right?
Messi?
Yeah.
It's like him and
Pele and Ronaldo or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially winning the World Cup kind of sealed that deal, right?
More of a Maradona guy. I like guys who have my body running around out there.
The fat guy?
I like guys who are sweating real hard.
He's got a lot of skill to be able to play that well at that rotund
I like guys
size.
who look like Boris Dio.
Right, skilled,
Yeah,
highly
a lot
skilled.
of skill.
A lot of skill.
Not, God didn't give you everything.
Certainly not. You're a big George Niang guy when he was here. Didn't he get mad at you for calling him fat?
Yeah.
Whereas you called Taylor Horton Tucker fat, and he rolled with it.
Well, Taylor's a professional. George is an amateur.
Well, nobody likes getting called fat, Ben. Nobody enjoys that. Especially when the question is like, hey, how do you play so well when you're so fat?
Hey, Beefcake. What happened?
All right, it is Wednesday, and that means we have tickets to give away, so stay tuned for that. It is Win Tickets Wednesday, if you will, Ben. And we've got Doobie Brothers tickets. Seen the Doobies multiple times. Always good. Stay tuned. More Jake and Ben next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is such a great song. You like Doobie Brothers, Ben?
I do.
You have a favorite tune?
I like the Michael McDonald era.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
They're all good. Well, I'm not gonna split hairs. Whatever. This 50 segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer combining beauty and technology on doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate at 801-566-1255. We are playing the Doobies for a reason. Caller 12 right now. It's a Win Ticket Wednesday, 801-575-ZONE. You're going to get a pair of tickets to go see the Doobie Brothers at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on August 30th.
The answer is Blackwater, right?
Yes,
That's the best song.
I think so.
That's one of the 5 best songs, maybe of all time.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, anyways. But that's not Michael McDonald.
Mississippi Moon, won't you keep on shining on me?
Yeah.
That's why I was kind of disagreeing with you. My favorite Doobie Brothers era is probably a little earlier.
Okay.
But yeah, he had a lot of hair.
That's why I like him.
You know who doesn't have a lot of hair? Carlos Boozer.
No?
And he's going to be coming back. Ben, we were just talking about this off the air. The Jazz, of course, have honored the eras, the decades this season. I think for their 50th season, I think they've done a great job with it, by the way. I think it's been really cool. And the players coming back for the 2000s era, I don't know if they could have done better. Were there 4 more relevant players than the ones they're bringing back for this era?
Well, this is the best collection of talent they've had for any of these eras and will be the best talent they have. Now, of course, the 70s, a lot of those guys are no longer with us.
Yeah, it's the most recent.
Weren't around very long, and it was New Orleans, so there wasn't those ties. I thought 80s was pretty cool. You brought Darrell Griffith, you brought Jeff Wilkins, you brought Ricky Green back, which was cool. 90s, of course, we didn't see John and Carl, which is always going to suck the wind out of it a little bit because what are the 90s without John and Carl?
Right.
But 2000s, it's the 4 heavy hitters. It's Murderer's Row of Jazz players from the 2000s.
Booze, D. Will, AK, and Memo.
We've seen Booze a lot. We've seen Darren a lot because he lives locally. We've seen Memo occasionally. Remember, he had a job as ambassador to the Jazz. We have not seen Karolinko, I don't think, since Kobe's farewell game in Salt Lake City, where they also honored AK. That was the last time I saw Andre Karolinko at a Jazz game. Maybe he's made a random appearance since then, but that was some time ago. To give you a reference of the last time Andre Karolinko was present at a Jazz game and being recognized. And he's one of the, can argue, certainly one of the 25 best players in Jazz history.
I mean this only slightly tongue-in-cheek. I'm glad he's able to come.
No question about it.
Glad that that's an option for him.
I have not followed at all his political life over the last few years, but obviously it is tenuous. in his
in that part of the world.
Yeah, so,
right.
I don't know where he's living. I have no idea what he's doing. I'll be curious if we get a chance to talk to him, what he says. But I'm glad he's coming back. When I saw the list of who was going to be back, I honestly was excited that Andre Karolinko was on the list.
Be on the lookout, Ben, for any like signs that he gives. Like I'm thinking. Like you've seen Hunt for Red October, like the crazy Ivan, you know what I mean? Where he's kind of like, which way, like if he goes starboard, he's going to defect. If AK blinks twice or something, you just be aware. May need to disappear AK for a while. Get him off the map.
I truly have no idea what he's been doing. He was running the Russian Basketball Federation for a while.
He's not doing that anymore.
Kind of overseeing some of the national stuff because his wife's dad was a coach also. Masha's dad, I think, was a coach. And he had, he had some history with coaching in his family as well. But I'm not sure exactly what he's been up to. So I'm curious to see, and I'm surprised Andre has not had a bigger presence in Utah than he has had, because he seemed to like it here. He was obviously beloved. There was a messy divorce, meaning with the Jazz and with Andre, really with the fan base, just because the years it took to untangle his contract in Salt Lake City, but has since, I think, circled back around to being beloved the way Jazz fans will, and there's no better example of that than both Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer, who are now pretty universally beloved by Jazz fans despite less than brilliant endings to their careers here. Kirilenko could have easily been in that group. But also, if I was born in Russia and I played 5 years or 7 years in Salt Lake City, I don't need to feel like that's home for the rest of your life. So I don't blame those guys.
No, I mean, like Joe Ingles is going back to Australia, and people go. I would say Thurl is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Right?
Darren.
And Darren, I don't think lives here full time.
No, he has a house here, but he probably has houses in Brooklyn and houses in San Diego. Yeah. Probably a house in Dallas.
He's from Dallas, right? Yeah. So I'm not sure where he spends the majority of his time, but he does still have a house here. But I think the players that play someplace and stay there, unless it's like Miami or LA, Phoenix has a lot of that, right? A lot of former athletes end up living in Phoenix.
Tons of people, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't think Thurl is kind of and I'm just using Thurl as the example because what a member of our community he's become. And considering he's from the complete opposite side of the country. I don't know how often that happens.
But it'll be fun to see these guys back. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a winnable game for the Jazz coming back. I suspect they'll be energized. I think there's going to be far better vibes around this team. We didn't talk about it. I know you were on vacation their last game. They kind of went out on a high note. They lost, but
they battled.
They battled. Keontae George gave you a real taste of the future. After a really bad start, shooting 1 of 15 from the floor, the worst shooting performance I may have ever seen in my life, Lowry bounced back and had a great fourth quarter. But to open the game, 1 of 15 was crazy for a guy who's that good.
Not to take us backwards, but let me throw this at you. Is the 2000s Jazz, I think that was actually a more frustrating era at the time, but will be more likable in the rearview mirror. Because it was a really flawed team that was not going to win the title and had some early success where you were like, oh, they're knocking on the door when they probably really weren't. But so there was that angst there, and you mentioned AK, where his divorce or his relationship with everybody because of his contract, he was the reason they couldn't get any better. He was. Mm-hmm. Now, Larry Miller was responsible too because he gave him the contract, but that was it. He had the most untradeable contract in the league because he wasn't nearly that good. Right. But as you look back on it, you're like, well, AK played hard, and he played defense, and he played with a smile on his face, and Booz was super productive and made an Olympic team and a bunch of All-Star games, and Darren Williams was the best point guard in the league at one point. Yeah. And Jerry, it was his last hurrah. Having kind of gone through it, it felt like fans were really angsty about that team. But you look back on it, and I think it gets a little rosier the further you get from it.
You're right. The trophies on the wall make it look easier than it actually was.
Right.
It was always up and down. It's not like Booz made 4 consecutive All-Star games. He made an All-Star game, got hurt. Okur replaced him. So even Okur being an All-Star was a little bit of a strange wrinkle. Obviously, their trip to the conference finals was, with all due respect, fluky.
It was fluky. They played Golden State in the second round instead of Dallas,
who was an 8 seed.
An 8 seed.
Versus the 1 seed. Yeah, there was just a lot of up and down. There was, of course, the hamstring injuries. There was the tenuousness that always existed with Darren Williams because he was pretty prickly early in his career. and good for him for rounding back around. I'm sure he's still extremely competitive. And you're right. The two guys that were most beloved on those teams, Karolinko and Okur was flawed as a player, very good but flawed, and Karolinko's contract made him hard to be like fully on board with because that was always the storm cloud that hung over his head. But you get away from it and you wash some of it, and all of a sudden it's this rosy team.
Those teams couldn't win on the road.
Yeah.
It was the dangest thing. They'd have the best home record in the league.
Yep.
And they'd be well below 500 on the road. I mean, they were just, it was more clunky at the time than maybe we remember going forward. And good for those guys because they had a lot of success. But at the time, it was
like I think there's a real argument that the Darren or Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert teams were better than those late 20-aughts teams. They didn't have the same success because they didn't get to the conference finals, but like consistent delivery night in and night out, they were better teams.
Yes.
And probably higher talent, with all honesty.
Right. I agree.
But we will not, at the moment, we don't look at those teams. We look at the 07 team that made the conference finals as better.
As better.
And they probably weren't.
Yeah. And I'll admit it, I attached some romanticism to it because of Jerry Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was Jerry Sloan proving what a great coach he was, that he would do it again without John and Carl.
No question. And that there was life after John and Carl, period.
Yeah.
And in the form of Boozer and D. Will, and that there was a new face.
And they proved it. Those teams were really good.
Came with new jerseys. Yeah, absolutely. No, it was certainly not a bad era. I mean, that could have been a disaster, and it wasn't. And so,
and they weren't down for a decade; they were down for a year, which is incredible. And Kevin O'Connor should get more credit for that. But at the time, it didn't feel like that.
It didn't. It never feels as good as it looks in the past.
Stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. We've got What You Got Wednesday, also at 11:30. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.